As we journey through life, we all encounter ebbs and flows, many highs and lows. We often come across stumbling blocks that leave us feeling quite disheartened or unsure about how to move back to the realm of possibility and positivity. No matter what we undergo, we all can embrace the journey, tap into the tools to push through and overcome, and find the beauty in the ashes. This is Odyssey with Yendi, Beauty in the Ashes. Stacey, I remember meeting you years ago in the corporate space.
Yes.
And I just remember being I was enamored with you. You know what it was? You were just so honest and open and forthcoming with the fact that life ain't perfect.
Yes.
I remember our first meeting, I feel like I learned so much about it. It was just refreshing. It was refreshing that you weren't like in a corporate space and all like,
Yes, yes.
you know, but girl, I've been through it. And have you been through it? But you've come through it.
Yes.
Still coming through it.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. Thank you for saying that. I never quite know how I occur to people at work.
Yeah.
You know, some people say that, boy, I'm intimidating when we get interns.
Yeah.
You know, but it's nice to know that I was professional, but chill maybe.
You were
a little easy.
I connected with you.
Yeah.
I related with you. I felt like you were human and not just someone who was like, this is what we're doing and that's it. Yeah. And one of those stories that you shared with me was the fact that you are a cancer survivor.
Yes.
A survivor.
Yes.
A survivor.
A thriver.
Yes. I didn't look at you with pity, but I looked at you like, what an incredible story she's sharing with me. Can you share it with us?
Oh gosh. Okay. Not so much of a big ask because it's actually one of the things I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And it has really been a catalyst for, I think, what's my now personal change mission.
Yeah.
You know, and it's also allowed me to explore a lot of hidden sides to myself.
Yeah.
You know, so moving away from just being very corporate into exploring what I would call my God-given gifts.
Yeah.
You know, my purpose gifts.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I was necessarily accessing very readily. You know. So let's start at the beginning.
Yeah, it's always a very good place to start.
Yes. So in 2009, I had not too long moved back to Jamaica because I'd always dreamed of, I left when I was a kid, so I'd always dreamed of coming home and being a part of creating an impact for the country.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring my tech expertise because that was my background, my educational background is all tech. And I wanted to bring that to the island and see how we could create digital transformation here. Now, this is way back in 2009, right?
Right.
And I came to work with a software company that was looking to be acquired. And that, I suppose, is still the aspiration of lots of, you know, startup companies now, is seeking that acquisition, that big investment, etc. And so I was working with this company, and about a year into that engagement, we got notice that we were going to be acquired. And so, you know, work was really intense. And I had just moved to the island, and the company that was acquiring us was a company that was in Canada.
Right.
And they wanted us to move to Canada, right?
And you're like,
I'm like, I just
came back.
Yeah, I just got here, right? In the midst of all of that happening with work, which, as you can imagine, at the time I was in a VP role, was pretty intense. I also had challenges with my marriage, and I was mothering 3 children.
Right.
So I think all those things combined really created a lot of overwhelm and stress.
Absolutely.
In my life.
Yeah. Understandably so.
Yeah, man. And wanting, I think, you know, I'm a high performance A-type personality, so you want to do everything good.
Yeah.
Everything has to be at a certain level of excellence, you know, and being able to maintain that, whether it's my own story about what my image was, or it's what other persons expected of me. I was definitely living into it on all different kind of levels.
Yes.
And right around the beginning of the year, I asked my then husband for a divorce, and we agreed to separate. And about 2 months later, after moving into a new space, because I kind of wanted to create a different feeling for myself going into 2010, I was having a moment, a sister moment, looking for outfit.
Yeah.
My sister brought over some hot dresses because at the time she was 18 and I was 33 or something.
And you're like,
and
no,
I'm like, no, yeah, I want to feel like,
Yeah.
my nice self,
Girl
my hot
hot.
self, hot
Yeah.
girl self. And I remember she had given me this strapless dress to try on. And you're walking around with your friends in your room or whatever, you're doing a little fashion show, and I walked past my bathroom door, and the mirror inside the bathroom reflected something on my chest. So literally, like, I walked past this way and I noticed something through the corner of my eye, which every time I tell that story, it's like people either them don't believe me or them think it's strange, just like I thought it was strange, right?
Something was alerting you to it.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so I went in the bathroom, and I was looking at the area which was probably right above my breast, in the
Okay.
chest area. And I was there searching down the place. And I was like, maybe it was a mosquito bite, but then I couldn't find the mosquito bite, which was strange. And she was like, are you sure you saw something? And I'm like, yes, man. And she's like, well, why are you obsessing about it? Because it was just, something didn't feel right.
Like your subconscious knew.
Yeah. And she was actually getting ready to go to med school. And, so she was like, just go to the doctor and see if you see anything, if it makes you that uncomfortable. And because it wasn't something I saw again, kind of postponed it. And I would say I probably went to the doctor maybe 3 or so weeks after when I saw it again. Now, at this point in time, I really must say that my understanding of, or even awareness of, anything breast cancer was nil.
Right.
Right. It wasn't even something that was in my space, because there is nobody in my family that has it. So that we don't have a history of it. It's not in general conversation. No friends, no parents or friends.
And you're also in your early 30s.
Yeah. I have kids, I breastfed, so highly unlikely. So I went to my general practitioner here, and she said, well, we just had your annual in October, so just a few months before.
But you didn't do a mammogram.
I didn't do a mammogram, but she did breast exam.
Right.
And just a general check, and I was very healthy, or appeared to be very healthy. And so she said, it's probably nothing, because she listed off all the different things about me as a woman that seemed healthy.
Right.
And so she said, let's just do a check and we'll do an ultrasound. So when she started doing the check now, she was like, where did you say you felt the thing again? So I was like, up here. And then she was like, oh, I think I'm also feeling something at the base of your breast. So maybe we'll definitely get the ultrasound done today. And we'll see what comes back. I don't want you to leave. I actually want you to stay and wait for the results, right? So I stayed, hung out in the waiting room. And when she came back in, she said, well, I think I'm going to have you see an oncologist, because I'm seeing some little lumps. And then I have what you call dense breasts, right? Which is where the tissue is there's a lot of tissue in there. So you can't necessarily make out, right? And she said, just for precaution's sake, and worst case, if he sees that there's something there that he wants to remove, you'll probably just have to take it out.
Right.
Because it's not supposed to be there. But I still don't think you should be alarmed or worried about anything. I was like, okay, fine. That sounds okay. And I don't remember updating my sister. I did tell her that I was going to be going to the doctor. And at the time, my mom was in London for work. And I think I would have talked to my girlfriends, because most of my friendship base was still away in Atlanta. And so I was, kind of talking to my girlfriends there and just telling them, what I was dealing with. But nobody was it wasn't a high priority item on anybody's list,
Right.
basically. And so I went and I saw a surgical oncologist, and he took a look at the scans, and then he examined me, and he said, I think we may need to do a biopsy. So this is me now. Now I haven't, as a techie, right, who spends tons of time working in tech, I did not Google one thing because
It was don't be alarmed.
yeah,
right?
and I just didn't. It's like almost like I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
You know,
That too, eh?
I just didn't want to know. So when he said biopsy, I was like, a biopsy? He said, yeah, we're gonna do a needle biopsy and just get a sample. And I think what was happening now is by the time I had done the first appointment and then done this second appointment, there were now more lumps.
Wow.
Right. So it was actually a pretty
How much time had
aggressive
passed?
cancer. Maybe 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is pretty aggressive.
Yeah. And so this was around April when I saw him, and he said, let's get the biopsy done, and then we'll make a decision as to whether or not we can just do a removal of the lumps. And I was like, okay, so what's the other option? Like if that's, and he's like, well, let's wait until the biopsy comes back. No, Yandy, let me tell you, I start to get a little nervous.
Totally. 'Cause I just got nervous listening
Right?
to you.
I started to get a little nervous. And I made a conscious decision that I was not going to talk to my mom about it because I just know my mother would freak out and I couldn't manage the freak out.
Right.
So I said I was going to call my friend that had recently, I had a cancer diagnosis the year before.
Okay.
And just kind of talking. He was on vacation with his family. And when I was talking to him, I started to cry. And it was basically, I just don't want to be sick. Like I have so much other stuff happening in my life right now. My marriage popping down. I have the 3 pitting them by myself.
Work is demanding.
Work is demanding. I have to be figuring out how we're going to pack up and move. Like, really though, I just not interested in this situation.
I mean, for more reasons
could
than
be-
one. Yeah.
That could be happening. And so I went and the biopsy appointment was a couple weeks later. I went and did the biopsy, which was horrible. And through that entire experience of the biopsy, I think is when I thought most about the possibility of having cancer.
Yeah.
Even though when you looked at all the pros, I was checking every box, except one that was at the top of every chart was that I was on birth control pills when I was younger. Right? What struck me about my biopsy experience was that the doctor that was conducting the biopsy, she was a 3-time cancer survivor.
I know who that is.
Yes.
Dr. Jennifer Mambe Alexander.
Yes. There you go.
Wow.
And she and I had a very intimate connection in the biopsy appointment. And she said to me, you remind me of myself when I first discovered my cancer.
I can understand why.
And I remember it was herself and a nurse. I had a friend that came with me to the appointment, but I told him to wait outside. I was like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
You don't need to come in. No, me no, not more biopsy, And every time I talk about it, I wish I had brought him in, right?
Yeah.
Because I was there, was a nurse there with her, an older woman. And she was like, just hold my hand. And when she started to do the first sample, I just fell out because it was so painful. And I was crying, I had the tears streaming down my face. And then she started to cry. Now, when a doctor start crying, you just feel like, okay.
It's because she feels like she's
because
looking at you.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
It's like a mirror, right?
Yeah.
And she said to me, I'm going to have to take multiple samples because I had
many lumps.
Yeah, many lumps, right? So it was a tricky appointment, and she called me after and said, I'm going to work on this overnight because I think you need to get your results immediately.
Probably need to get that treatment
ASAP.
Yeah, it's aggressive.
And nobody is, because at this point you can't really say you have cancer because you don't have the results.
That's right.
And it's such a touchy.
Yeah, you can't even hint that, yeah.
Right? So luckily for me, the doctor that I was seeing, the oncologist that I was seeing, was at Medical Associates, which was right next door to the office that I worked in. And he called me up and he was like, your results are in. This is like the next couple of days. He was like, your results are back. I need you to come over. So I was like, well, can't you just give it to me over the phone? Like, I'm busy.
Not quite. Nope, nope.
I have this meeting or whatever the case is. And he's like, no, you need to come into the office. And so I ran in and I told my boss that, I'm going to run across next door. And he's like, oh, but isn't that the oncologist? And I was like, yeah, I'm just picking up my results. He's like, don't you think you want somebody to come with you? And I was like, okay, fine.
And probably
Like,
not come back into the office today.
So he drove me over.
Yeah.
And we went in and, he said the biopsy results came back very quickly. Dr. Mambi was pretty intentional with getting the results back to me. And I'm sorry to say that you do have breast cancer. The test results came back showing the cells were malignant, and it's a pretty aggressive type of cancer. So we feel that you may need to start treatment immediately. Now, once he said that I had cancer and he said that the malignant, etc., I heard nothing after that. It wasn't silent, but I almost left my body in disbelief. Disbelief, annoyance, sadness. I don't know that there was one particular emotion.
Everything came.
It's just
raging.
everything.
Yeah.
I did not cry. I was numb. And I just wanted to know, okay, so what next, right? And luckily, I had actually brought somebody with me. And
Actually, he said he was coming with you.
right.
Hello, Superwoman. Sure.
And so he got all the deets, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember as we were walking back to the car, because I was like, can we just go back to the office? Like, I just kind of want to disappear into some work. And he was like, I think you should go home, And I was like, no, not really, because home not so happy, right? And interestingly, at the time, my now ex had come back to the island, because we were trying to work things out. And I was just like trying to process navigating all of that.
Everything
right?
is happening.
And
at
then I
one
was like,
time.
no, the kids are going to be home from school. Like, how's that going to work? And then I thought about Victoria. She was the smallest one. And I was like, I don't know that I can see my children.
Smallest one being 2 years old at the time.
Yes. It's like, I don't think I can process this with children.
Yeah.
Because if that was kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to respond to that. And we went and got my stuff from the office because he insisted, and he dropped me home. And I just remember feeling very weak.
Yeah.
I don't remember crying still.
Yeah.
And I walked into the house. Everything was okay until I saw my little girl. And then just, that's when it hit, like.
Your mortality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you feel like, am I gonna die? And I think that's when I really started to look at my breast and started to examine myself, because up until that point, I feel I was more interested in just moving beyond it and not being with it. There was no surrender and acceptance happening in my space.
Right.
And when I actually started to now examine myself, I realized that I could now very distinctly feel this lump.
Right.
And there were multiple lumps under the breast in places I didn't even know it existed. And so the doctor had pretty much thrown the book at me. He was like, okay, you're really young. You're 34 years old. So you're really not, you're like in that point whatever percent. So you definitely have to have a mastectomy. It's going to be a radical mastectomy. We're not going to save any breast tissue. You're also going to have to do chemo, you're gonna have to do radiation, you're gonna have to do everything, and then when you finish that, you're gonna have to go on the meds, and it was just like,
Onslaught.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I wasn't so okay with that, right? I think so. It was like coming into the reality of the situation and then thinking about, like a type A person, all right, just give me the checklist. Let's see what we can do.
Let's get this
Let's
done.
get this done so
Yeah.
I can move on with my life. I have a company to help run. I have employees to relocate. I have to figure out school, etc., etc. And so when he was trying to now schedule my surgery, I remember trying to put it in my calendar, right?
I can't.
Because
It's just a formality that needs to be done.
yeah, I'm in the middle of my move, and so I actually had a trip to Canada to look at schools and pick out where to live and all that kind of stuff. And I said, I'll do the surgery when I get back from that trip because I need to. So almost like still not having the reality
You've not
of
accepted
it.
it.
No, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
And it took me, it was April 28th that I got the results, and it took me 3 weeks, which was like right before I went off to Canada, before I told my mother, because I was also not willing to navigate the emotional space of anybody else,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But I knew I needed to talk to her about it because I was getting ready to fly to Canada, and she was going to be the person helping with the kids while I was gone and all of this stuff. So I told my mom. I don't think I paused to really help her absorb the news. I just kept moving. And
Stacey, you haven't paused to absorb the news yourself, right?
I know, let me tell you,
Much
it
less
took
for mommy.
years for me to pause to absorb the news,
Yeah.
right?
But then you also, this whirlwind is happening. This
Yes,
whirlwind
yes. A
is
lot
happening.
of change.
But then the treatment has to happen.
Yes.
And the treatment is no joke.
Yes. So that was where things took a little bit of a twist for me, because I didn't want to necessarily do treatment in Jamaica. I wanted to go back to what I considered my home at that point, which was familiar to me, which was Atlanta.
Right.
And so I agreed to do the surgery because they wanted to do the surgery pretty immediately.
Right.
And then do the treatment away. And I asked him, I was like, what can I cut? Can I shift or change anything, right? And he said, no. I was like, well, can you save my nipple, please? And he said, no, but I'll take a picture of it for you, which he actually did. Wow. And I'm glad he couldn't save it, because when you look at a cancer carcass, it's just really disturbing, right? Yes, it's quite disturbing. Wow. So when I was doing the whole thing about going back to Atlanta, I started to investigate natural therapies. And I talked with one of my brothers who was sharing with me about a nutritionist I had worked with when I was living there. And they said, you should come and, see if he can support you while you go through your treatment. So when I started talking to him, I said, well, I wonder if they have people like that in Jamaica, because I know that they have lots of herbalists and things here and all of the thing. So I found this nurse that persons were talking about as a popular cancer treatment person.
Oh.
Yes. And she specialized in urotherapy.
Okay.
Which is drinking your pee.
Said what now?
Yes. And
okay.
I didn't know that was
a thing. Okay.
I didn't even know that was the thing I was going for. I just knew that. And she was in the same medical associates plaza.
Right.
So I figured, yeah, man, she must be legit.
She's in the thick of them all.
Yeah, she's everything. So I show up at this appointment now, and she have on her nurse's uniform, and her skin is just like perfect and looking amazing. Waiting room full of people. I said, okay, we're good.
Popular.
Yeah, we're good. And so she takes me through the conversation about, so it's about drinking these different herbs. And that is where now it will cleanse your system, fill it with antioxidants, and cleanse the system, right? No, that I was fine with that.
Okay.
And then she said, and what you need to do now is you need to drink the pee in the morning.
Your first urine.
First urine in the morning. She said, that is what my skin, you see how my skin look nice? That's... So I said, yeah,
Did you say sign me up? Tell the truth. Were you like, sign me up now?
So I didn't say sign me up now with that kind of fervor, but I did say sign me up.
So you tried it?
I drank my pee for about 3 weeks. Yeah.
And, well, first of all, I'm going to ask what everybody's probably thinking. What does it taste like? I'll start there.
I know the camera guys are like, what?
I know. They're shook. What does it taste like?
It tastes like pea.
Is it salty?
No, and I think maybe because I was drinking all of that herbal stuff.
Oh.
Because you're drinking all, like I had to be drinking these gallons and gallons of herbal things, right? It's warm.
Yeah, I think we all know that. I'm going to ask the other things I'm sure everybody else is thinking. Did it work?
So what I would say is, I don't know that it worked,
Okay.
right? I do know that I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
Okay.
Because it's toxins, right? You're removing
It's
toxins
waste
from your
matter.
body.
Yeah.
So logically, you really don't want to be putting it back in your body. I mean, unless you're like stuck in the desert or something,
Right.
and you don't have a choice. That's when you drink your pee, because you're in the desert and you're trying survival. Not when you have a plethora of herbs and actual
Yeah.
plants and fruits that have healing elements in them. And when I went to Atlanta, I think the perfect analogy, which is really what kind of made the picture very bright in my mind, my nutritionist, Jaman, that I worked with, when I told him that I had been doing this, he was really hurt. He actually teared up, because as somebody that is a naturalist, right? You can imagine he's like, oh my God, you're putting that in your body. And he said, I know you're afraid, and I know you don't want to die. But God has given us an earth filled with things that you can put in your body. And he said, think about how destructive pee can be. And he used an example of when the men on the street side pee in a particular area over and over and over
When
again.
you walk past a
When
bus
you
stop,
walk,
they must
all
taste
right,
it,
all
and the sun
right.
a bake it.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. So that kind of really brought it home to
Yeah.
me.
But do you think that was a bit of desperation?
Yeah, not a bit.
A lot
It
of-
was a lot of desperation.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was a lot of
I'll
I'll do anything
Yeah.
to save myself. And I was afraid of chemo, because at that point now I start watching all the movies and seeing all the people that die from breast cancer,
Yes.
and seeing how them lose them hair from chemotherapy, and
And what the radiation
what the
does to your
radiation
body.
does, and
Yeah.
so what I agreed to with him was to go on a journey of combining the things that mentally I thought I had the stamina for.
Okay.
So I opted out of chemo and opted into radiation,
Okay.
acupuncture, and changing to a liquid vegan diet.
Right.
So I went completely liquid. So I was basically drinking my food every
Smoothies
day.
throughout the day.
Yeah, so it was soups, smoothies, drinks, lots and lots of purified water.
Yes.
And the idea behind it was that in order for him to pack me with the amount of antioxidants and nutrients I needed to both fight the cancer and build my system back up, it was so much. Now, at this point, I didn't even realize that I had gone down to like 90 pounds.
Wow.
Right? So I was really mager down, and in a state of, I would say, just what I now know as mental illness, but then I was just feeling really sad.
But then you ended up
You know,
going into a place of...
of depression, of clinical
Yeah.
depression.
Yeah.
And the radiation treatment was horrible. I spent a lot of time crying on the radiotherapy bed. And the process of, I think the most interesting part of my treatment was just being with this nutritionist.
Right.
I spent hours with him every single day in between going for treatment and working, because I was still working remotely.
Right.
I didn't have my kids. My kids were in Jamaica with my mom. And when I was transitioning to Canada, like I was literally interviewing people for jobs that were going to be taken up in Canada, and just kind of making that transition while I was going through
Trying to heal your body.
Yeah.
You mentioned something to me which I really think is so important to bring up. Because you said the type of cancer you had
Yes.
is not in genetics, not hereditary. It's estrogen
Yes,
based. It's triggered
They call
by
it HER2.
It's
HER2,
HER2,
HER2 positive. I was HER2 positive.
and it's triggered by what most people think is completely normal.
Yeah.
But it's not normal to walk around stressed and...
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, and that's probably where I've done a lot of my most recent work, is really trying to understand how our minds create illness in our body, right? So when you think about overwhelm and stress, you're literally living in a survival state. That's your constant state. So it's like, when something scares you, like really frightens you, that's what you're doing when you're stressed out,
You're living in dis-ease.
Yes, like all the time. And it's just
Disease.
normal for us, right?
Yeah.
Stress, overwhelm, burnout. You just feel like,
Western world.
yeah,
life.
it's the noble
Yeah.
way of being, overworked and tired
And underpaid.
underpaid,
Yeah.
for many. And so for me, it was a lot of stress, a lot of fatigue, definitely not sleeping enough, right? And diet plays an important part in that, because while I would say that I probably was on the healthier side, meaning not necessarily having like a lot of junk food or processed things, I was still not as healthy as I could have been. And I certainly wasn't, from a mental perspective, I wasn't observing my thoughts and the toxic things that I was thinking about, which I really do believe take position in your cells and
Yes.
ultimately manifest into some kind of disease.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Literally.
Yeah,
Yes.
literally.
Disease.
Yes.
I'm listening to you, and it's one thing after the next, after the next,
Yeah.
after the next. There is a very frightening diagnosis that's happening. There's a separation that's happening.
Yeah.
You are now clinically depressed, trying to navigate it all. But I'm looking at you sitting here in front of me, and you're not in that place. You're in a place of, I see wellness in your eyes. I see light in you.
Yeah.
How did you get from that point to where you are sitting in front of me now?
A whole heap of work.
Yeah.
I will say that it's an intentional journey,
Yes.
which is why the methodology and the concept of intentional living is so core to my everyday now,
It is.
because I've had to learn to identify my purpose in life
Yes.
and to determine what it is I'm living for, and to be willing to play that music. Wayne Dyer, one of my favorite
Yes.
authors.
Me too.
Yes,
Yeah, I love Wayne Dyer.
great. He has a quote that says, "Don't die with your music still in you."
Yes.
And I remember
A word.
reading that and feeling it to my core, because I was facing death, and I don't believe I had fully stepped into my music.
Yes.
And I think for
Yes.
many of us who are in corporate, especially women that are in the corporate space and are working and being boss and doing the thing, and you love it, yes, I feel that there is always something within us to birth. We have a womb, right? It's not just for children. There is something, we are creators by nature, right? And so I was clear that I still had music within me to birth.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And through therapy, I remember when I walked into that psychiatrist's office, and I said to her, like, I think this is a mistake. Like, I'm really not supposed to be here. I'm very sane, and I know what mad people look like, and I ain't no mad person.
Come in now, walk road.
Yeah, right?
However,
And she said, well, if your doctors chose to send you here, it's for one of two reasons: either to put you on meds because you're not well, or to put you in the psych ward. So we're going to have this session, and then for your sake, we hope you don't end up in the psych ward. So, me just sit down and cross my legs nicely.
yes, miss. Yes, miss.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But, through the conversations with her, I started to become more present with myself.
Yes.
And I had read, before then I had read Eckhart Tolle, and I had been kind of looking at the stuff, I was an Oprah fan and all of that kind of stuff. So I understood it conceptually.
But not in application.
Yes.
Yes.
Not for myself, eh?
Yes.
And so I started to look at myself and to dissect the elements of my life that were not in alignment with my best life, my authentic life, my God-given life.
Yes.
And it made me more sad because I realized how much of me I was missing.
Wow.
And I don't know that without cancer,
You would have found you.
I would have found myself.
Isn't that something? You know, that's exactly why I'm holding this space. That's exactly why I've been moved to hold this space.
Yeah.
Because here it is, you just said something that to most people, and even to you in that moment,
Yeah.
felt like a death sentence,
Yeah.
felt like a weight.
Yeah.
But look at the beauty that came out of those ashes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in that process and in that journey,
Yeah.
you found you.
Yeah. And I won't say that stepping into the fullness of me was with open arms and acceptance, you know, because
It's not comfortable.
No, not at all. Like when you realize the foolishness and the toxicity that you were allowing in your general environment and in your life and in your body,
Yes.
when that reality hits, you know, it's like you get shook. It's like a moment of what is happening?
Yeah.
And then you now have to create something new. You have to set an intention for a new being and step fully into that beingness.
Yes. You have to set an intention for that new being
Yes.
and step fully
Yes.
into
like you
that
can't
beingness.
halfway do the thing.
No, no.
You know, it's either you're there or you're deciding not to go there.
And you really shouldn't halfway anything in life, but not
Yeah.
halfway on you either.
Yeah.
You can't do that to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
You keep mentioning the word intention, and I have to get here because I've told you, I think, no, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, and I don't care. Call me the broken record. Your cards.
Oh, yes. Yes.
What a beautiful manifestation of your
Oh,
experience.
gosh. Oh, gosh,
I
yeah.
hear you more than once now. You've spoken about the importance of being intentional.
Yes.
Is that what drove you to doing your cards that you've created?
Yes, absolutely. Because I was already a self-development junkie, but more from a business kind of
Yes.
career standpoint. And then once I got ill, it became more personal. And so I stepped more into that self-development space, you know, in walk the Wayne Dyer and the Abraham Hicks and all the different teachers,
Right.
you know, and kind of reassessing my relationship with God and spirituality and what that meant to me. And so a lot of these teachers were a part of Oprah's, I suppose, wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Right? And so I ended up not just reading a lot of the books, but also tuning into some of the conversations. And I came across this book of Oprah's, What I Know for Sure, which was really just a compilation of her different conversations. And in it, she had a segment that talked about her conversation with Gary Zukav, who wrote Seat of the Soul.
Yes.
And in it, they talk about the power of intention.
Yes.
And then Wayne Dyer had a book called The Power of Intention, which I
Yes.
ended up reading after that. So I just got really clear that behind my thoughts, behind my emotions, there is an intentionality that happens at a subconscious level.
Yes.
And this allows me to access and create the life experience I desire.
Yes.
I may tell you, so the thing, when I realize the thing, you know, I like me get so excited about it.
No more.
I was like, no, sir, no. So you mean say I can literally design how I want my life to show up? I can literally work with my highest self, my source, and define the path that I want to take. So my life don't have to be popped down. Broke, can't make the rent, can't make the supermarket. I try to worry about when I swipe the card that the woman I go say, ma'am, you know, take care of the kids.
Where the lady that come from? Lady said, ma'am. I'm like, is she from the South?
Sorry, ma'am, but your card was declined.
And them don't whisper it either,
They
you
don't
know.
whisper it. They're like, would you like to step aside and let the next person check up? And I got through enough of them
Girl.
things. Enough of them things, right? And so when I discovered this thing and started reading about it, I took it into my prayer and meditation in the mornings. I realized that I have more power in me than I even knew. Like all of this time when I was a Christian growing up and I was thinking when they talk about, everything you need is within you and, Christ shares that message with you. And I don't think I really got it. And
Because we just regurgitate
yeah, just
it,
regurgitate,
right?
And
Yeah.
so kind of getting this, I got excited and I was like, boy, everybody needs to get this.
Yeah.
Everybody, this can't be something I keep to myself. I want everybody to understand the power of intention and what it means to create the life experience you desire. So I started to write down, like every morning when I would go into my prayer moment, I would write down an intention.
Yeah.
And it just kept happening. And sometimes I'd get 2 and I'd get 3 and I would just write. I had these little books and I would just
Yes.
write it down. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to put it on an Instagram page. And so I started doing that. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to get a book. Like I just kept trying to figure out.
Maybe I need to do this podcast.
Yeah, how do I get it out so that other people can avoid the suffering?
Yes.
You're going to have to go through suffering,
We all
but
do.
it don't necessarily have to look like cancer, divorce, depression,
Right.
broke.
Right.
It don't have to look like the bottom of the barrel,
Right.
And so I fell in love with it, and out of that came an experience of creating these affirmation cards, which me can't tell you, Andy, I never have no clue how to create no
I
card.
love them.
No clue about nothing,
Love them. Yeah.
But it has been, it's been a passion project of mine and has allowed me to express myself in ways that I never thought I could. And I think it's really been one of the easiest ways for me to connect with people and to help people.
Yeah.
To know that even if in this moment you don't feel like you can make it, you can borrow a thought freely. Borrow a word that can propel you in this moment to your next. Sometimes you just need to get to the next moment.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you now? You are well. Your 10-year checkup has happened. You are healthy. Things are good.
All right. So let me tell you. In this moment, I'm experiencing other kinds of, I wouldn't call it disease, but my body has other kinds of ill health.
Okay.
And it's something that I think I haven't talked about actually. But this year, we're like pandemic year, I've been having my own personal pandemic.
Okay.
I've had to go through an oral biopsy procedure because I had something happening in my mouth that they were concerned was cancer related. So I actually had to cut out a piece of my tongue and have that biopsied. And I'm still going through that process now. So biopsy came back great.
Okay. Good.
And now I'm waiting for my full body scans to come back.
Okay.
I am well, despite anything external. My soul is well. And I am filled with joy and abundance every day.
Yes.
My kids are well and thriving despite them going through the same thing I was going through.
Yes.
I have an amazing partner.
Yes.
And so I'm experiencing love on a level that is in alignment with my now being.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'm well. And I will continue to be well until my purpose here has been served. Yeah.
That's a beautiful book. Love that. Love that. And I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Proud of you. You make me just want to live good and intentional. Girl, my mascara is waterproof. Is yours?
Yes.
Thank goodness for that. Thank you so much, Stacey.
No, it was my pleasure being here. I was so excited to come and just chat. It's nice. And there are lots of women who are in the space of not knowing, uncertainty, dis-ease, unhappiness. And there is always the other side.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like it in the moment, but the juice is in the journey, right? I wouldn't be able to share and give had I not had that full experience. And it covered all areas of my life. It covered my health, it covered my wealth, it covered my love and relationships, and it covered my career, my vocation, all of that. All areas of my life were impacted, and I had to go through it to get to it, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you could sit here and inspire others
Yeah, I
who are
hope
not
so.
sure how they are going to get to it.
Yes, I hope somebody's inspired.
Girl, I sure am. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me.
Man, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're nice, bad. Oh, girl. Awesome.